Welcome to the channel Analytical Topics, where I discuss politics, history, religion, and how I see through the hypocrisy in this democracy. On today's edition, we will be fact-checking Ben Dykes about the flow of fentanyl and where does it come from. Because there's been a misnomer or propaganda that the right is running with, saying how the fentanyl crisis is coming from Venezuela. They're manufacturing it and they smuggling it into the U.S., which is I don't think it's true. It's true. But Ben Dykes, who is a content creator, and he's also a 20-year submarine U.S. Navy veteran, America First kind of guy. He I guess he does MAGA news. Well, I don't know if he's MAGA or not, but I'm assuming he is. He's he has a belief in Trump. So I'm going to put him in that category. I'm a stereotype that he's MAGA, But I'm going to read to you his description in his channel of his views and what he thinks. I am not the news. What he say? He's not the news, okay? I give you my opinion informed by 2 decades of real world experience. Real world experience, okay? If you're tired of being talked down to, misled, or flat out lied to by people who never worn a uniform or taken a real risk. That's his description. That's what his channel is about. Not misleading people. So we're gonna listen to Ben Dykes and how he misleads people, because he has this theory that the flow of fentanyl comes from Venezuela, and we're gonna have to fact check him on it. Ben is going to elaborate to us that the crisis of fentanyl comes from Venezuela.
Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, Donald Trump had a phone call with Nicolas Maduro. And here's the kicker. No one is talking about this. No one is saying that Donald Trump reached out and actually spoke to the dictator, that Venezuela rejected the offer, and that's where closing the airspace is coming into play. The story might sound like it's happening far away, but it lands right on our doorstep, because a lot of the drug pipelines, trafficking networks, and smuggling routes that end up at our border start in this exact region. This isn't just foreign policy. This is why fentanyl floods our towns.
So he's trying to elaborate that mostly all the drugs come from Venezuela. What are you trying to say? You're trying to say all the drug flow that's in America comes from Venezuela? Where?
Why cartels keep slipping through, why our border agents are overwhelmed. Trump's one goal here is obvious. Cut the problem off before it reaches our border. You might agree with...
Oh, let me get something straight. Venezuela is on the side of where Florida is and whatnot. So I think getting through the border by Florida is a little different than getting through the border of where Mexico is, coming through LA, whatnot, or Texas and stuff. But I don't think that all the drugs that's coming into America comes from out of just Venezuela. I'm not saying there's no drugs that come out of Venezuela. Oh, I'm saying that. I'm not saying that, but I do know certain drugs that don't come from Venezuela, and certain drugs do.
That approach or you might not, but that's the strategy. And once you understand that, everything he's doing makes a whole lot more sense. To wrap this up, here's the bottom line. Trump's airspace declaration didn't just happen out of nowhere. This is the latest move in a months-long strategy to push back on trafficking networks.
Trafficking networks. Okay. We're gonna have to check some, bro. Cause so I'm gonna go to a few people to fact check, debunk you. I'm gonna go to a congressman, Jason Crow. Jason Crow is I think, Army Ranger. I think, I'm not too sure, but he is one of the congressmen that Trump called treason, and that he wished they was hung because he told, well, not just him, but a few other people told the U.S. military to stand down from unlegal orders from Donald Trump. Jason Crow is part of that group that Trump wanted to be hung for treason.
President Trump facing outrage from Democrats tonight after demanding the arrest of a half-dozen Democratic lawmakers, suggesting they be executed for posting this video.
We want to speak directly to members of the military.
Where 6 Democrats, all with national security backgrounds, urge members of the military to disobey any illegal orders from President Trump.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
Referring to the video, President Trump writing, "Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up," and "seditious behavior punishable by death." Later reposting a comment in which someone wrote, quote, "hang them, George Washington would."
There's been no drop in the flow of the drugs that actually are killing our kids. Our kids and our communities are being devastated by fentanyl and meth. And fentanyl and meth does not come from Venezuela.
Things that are very important, that are concerning about the border, and how people are just able to walk across the border and get here. The two things are
That's not true.
drugs
They just
and
walk
fentanyl,
across.
and also human trafficking.
That was Republican San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond. For years, politicians, mainly Republicans, have drawn a clear line between the country's fentanyl epidemic and illegal immigration. They say border walls and other harsh immigration measures will prevent fentanyl from entering the country. But what they aren't saying is that the vast majority of fentanyl is smuggled into the country by U.S. citizens.
Oh.
KPBS spoke with local prosecutors, experts, and Border Patrol officials to get a better understanding of how fentanyl gets here and who brings it in.
80% of the people who we prosecuted and convicted, and by we I mean the federal government, 80% of people convicted in 2023 of drug trafficking offenses were U.S. citizens.
But homies just said fentanyl comes from Venezuela. So homie said. I mean, so what's that? She was a U.S. attorney said American citizens bring in 83% of fentanyl. A congressman said that fentanyl don't come from Venezuela. Our next question will be, who is bringing in this goddamn fentanyl? Who is bringing this in? and let's see.
Pointing out that the ostensible rationale for the ramping up of the U.S. position vis-a-vis Venezuela and Maduro is that they're running fentanyl on these drug boats, and it's almost laughable propaganda because why do you think it is laughable propaganda?
Well, yeah, because for starters, by the government's own admission, by just from the DEA, the amount of fentanyl that comes transited through Venezuela is minuscule, right? Most of it comes from Mexico, precursors in China. Some of it's made domestically, also made in Canada, smuggled overland into the United States from Mexico. So the idea that there is some fentanyl pipeline running itself out of Venezuela that can be easily closed by interdiction, lethal interdiction, I might say, legal interdiction by the U.S. Navy.
Now, Mr. Dykes, you are what you say you was? You was a 20 years submarine U.S. Navy veteran. So you should know. You should know where the flow, the drugs coming through and all that. You know what I mean? But you insist that Venezuela is bringing in the fentanyl. I could clearly tell you didn't do your extensive research on this topic. I could tell you didn't.
We begin with an announcement on sanctions unveiled today by the Biden administration. And it
Just so you know, this is during Biden's last term.
Deals directly with trying to curtail the fentanyl epidemic. The Treasury Department announcing it's targeting those involved in helping produce the synthetic opioid, including businesses and people in both China and Mexico. Now, the specific...
China. He didn't say Venezuela. Not one time. I hear that. I hear no Venezuela. You know what I mean?
Focus here is on the machines that are used to label drugs. People are buying what they think is one product, but it's actually something much more potent. The rise of fentanyl, as you know, which often enters the United States through Mexico and China, has become a major problem.
He said that twice. He said it twice. He said it 2 times.
According to the CDC, more than 72,000 people died from synthetic fentanyl overdoses in 2022. In the past 7 months alone, 17,200 pounds of fentanyl has been seized. Now, for some context here, that's more than 3.5 times the amount than what was seized in 2019. Joining me now is Brian Nelson. He is the Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence at the Department of Treasury. Brian, thanks for joining us here on News Nation. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us, what were the sanctions that you unveiled today, and sort of where does this fit into the grand scheme of everything?
Yeah, as you noted, the death of so many Americans as a result of this horrible drug, fentanyl, as well as other opioids, synthetic opioids, is a true whole of government priority of the Biden administration. So from the Treasury Department's perspective, we've looked at the tools that we have to do a couple of things.
Oh, that's the what you call it, stampages.
One, identify the financial networks that
oh yeah, that's it right there. That's it. That's the compressor. Okay. Yeah.
Traffic of these drugs. 2, to ensure that we can target.
Whoa. That's in somebody's room, bro. Niggas, y'all doing this in a regular room? That's not like, bad. All right.
Sanctions authorities and others, those that are either members of the drug.
That shit like one of them. Well, that's not the. It looks similar to when dudes that be doing the scamming with the cards and shit. Like they got that little fucking whatever that plate shit is.
Trafficking organization.
Skimmer.
Drug trafficking organization themselves, as well as the money launderers the producers of the precursor drugs that go into these synthetic opioids and fentanyl specifically, and then as represented today,
yo, bro, what's that noise in the back?
Supply the machinery that is necessary to produce these drugs. So,
yo, bro,
we
you got that noise?
With our partners in the government of Mexico, a number of actors that supply.
What the hell was that?
The pill presses and the sorry for the background noise there.
Oh my God.
No worries. I've been there a bunch, and it's hard when you got trucks behind you. But specifically here, what we're talking about is sort of those pill presses, as you mentioned. So someone gets a drug, they think it might be Xanax, but it's actually not, for example, or whatever that drug might be, and it's something potentially deadly, right? Isn't that what you're going after here? Or laced with fentanyl, right?
That's
yo, what's up with the noise?
That's exactly right. And we've identified 17 entities and people both in China.
Oh, this definitely could have been on CNN.
That support the production of these pill presses, which themselves are a controlled good.
Man, cut that shit, yo, man. Move on the spot.
Designated those because what we see is, given how potent these drugs.
Well, let me see. Fentanyl seized in 2019, 4,791. Fentanyl seized in 2022, 17,000. Oh, it's going up, cuz. It's going up. And how much fentanyl has been seized under this Trump administration?
Hey, Brian, before we go, the individuals and the businesses today that were targeted are in China and Mexico.
You heard that.
Correct. Chinese government, the Mexican government, are they helping out on this front at all, as you see it from where you sit inside the Treasury Department?
You know, we're constantly engaging the Chinese government about how we can more proactively get after this problem. And as is evidenced by our action today, we did this in partnership with the government of Mexico, going after the Mexican entities.
I don't believe your sound.
Brian Nelson, over at the Treasury Department, thanks for talking about this, of course, an important topic.
You don't sound real, believable, Brian. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, appreciate it. You heard that, Ben? Brian, in 2000 and what was that? 19, 22, one of those. It was the flow come from Mexico and China. I don't know, you talking about some Venezuela. What are you talking about, Venezuela, bro? What you talking about? Stop the lies, man. Stop the lies. Not only is you misleading, you're disinforming your base. Your base, your audience. Dude, you're misleading yourself unless you know this and you purposely are being dishonest. If you're purposely being dishonest, you know what that's called, right? Fake news. Fake news. So Brian, Brian, call you Brian. That's Brian, the one who had the real news of Brian. Ben. So Ben, I'm gonna be doing some more content on you, Ben. And hopefully, the next time you have something that's facts. You know what I'm saying? That's factual. That you can share with your viewers. And stop being disinformed, misleading, lying. As you said in your description. Because, you're not the news. But you're reporting the news. But you only giving your opinion. That's a problem. That is a problem. That's a problem. And you a 20-year U.S. Navy veteran? You just lying like that? Just flat out just lying like, yo, Venezuela, they sell all the drugs. They bring all the drugs. Like, come on, you got to do better than that, Ben. Gotta do better than that, bro. Cut it out. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow.
Don't forget, like, comment,